The morning sun cast a golden hue over the dusty outskirts of the village, but for 14-year-old Ayana, there was no warmth in the light. She stood in her grandmother's modest home, clutching a letter from the local clinic. Her little brother's fever had worsened overnight, and without proper treatment, the doctors gave little hope. The family needed money they simply didn't have. "There must be another way," her mother whispered, hands trembling as she counted their meager savings for the third time. That afternoon, a visitor arrived at their door, Eleanor Langston, a 62-year-old American humanitarian who had established a small medical outreach program in the region. The villagers knew her as the quiet woman who funded the mobile clinic that visited monthly. "I heard about your son," Eleanor said, her voice gentle but direct. "I'd like to help." Eleanor offered to cover the boy's medical expenses completely. No conditions, no expectations. Just help freely given. Ayana's mother wept with relief as they rushed the boy to the hospital in Eleanor's Jeep. During the long nights at the hospital, Ayana learned Eleanor's story. She had been a pediatrician who, after retiring, dedicated her remaining years to addressing healthcare inequities in underserved regions. She traveled with a small team, working mostly behind the scenes. "Why our village?" Ayana asked one evening as they shared a simple meal in the hospital cafeteria. Eleanor's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Because help is needed here, and I can provide it. That's reason enough." As Ayana's brother recovered, Eleanor invited Ayana to visit her small compound where she coordinated her humanitarian efforts. Inside, Ayana discovered a library filled with books about medicine, education, and social justice. On one wall hung photographs, dozens of young people from various countries, all smiling, all thriving. "Who are they?" Ayana asked, studying their faces. "Students I've sponsored over the years," Eleanor explained. "Children who wanted education but couldn't afford it. Some have become doctors, teachers, engineers. One is even a member of parliament now." Ayana's fingers traced the edge of a photograph showing a young woman in a white coat. "She's a doctor?" "Yes, from a village not unlike yours. She now runs a clinic in her hometown." A new possibility sparked in Ayana's mind. She had always been bright, top of her class before her family could no longer afford the school fees. She had dreams of becoming a nurse, dreams she had carefully tucked away as impossible fantasies. "I could study again?" The question emerged barely audible. Eleanor's response was to place a notebook in Ayana's hands. "Write down what you want to learn. Education should never be out of reach because of money." Over the following weeks, as her brother regained his strength, Ayana became Eleanor's informal assistant. She helped organize medical supplies, translated for patients who spoke only the local dialect, and absorbed everything she could about healthcare. Eleanor noticed her quick mind and natural empathy with patients. "You have a gift," Eleanor told her. "It shouldn't go to waste." One evening, Eleanor revealed the true extent of her work. The photographs weren't just of students she'd sponsored. They represented a network she had built over decades, an international alliance of educators, healthcare workers, and lawyers dedicated to protecting vulnerable children and fighting against child marriage and trafficking. In this region alone, dozens of girls your age are forced into marriages each year, Eleanor explained gravely. Education is their best defense. Ayana thought of her friend Zara, who had disappeared last year after being married to a man 3 times her age. No one spoke of her anymore. She thought of other girls from her village who had vanished similarly, their futures stolen. "I want to help," Ayana said firmly. Eleanor didn't hesitate. "Then we begin tomorrow." What started as informal education became structured learning. Eleanor arranged for qualified teachers to visit regularly. Ayana studied voraciously: mathematics, sciences, literature, and health education. Other girls from the village joined them, creating an impromptu school in Eleanor's compound. When Eleanor fell ill 6 months later, she revealed that she had been battling cancer for years. "My time is limited," she admitted to Ayana. But the work doesn't have to end. She had already prepared legal documents establishing a foundation with sufficient funds to maintain the school and clinic for decades. A board of trustees, including some of those former students from the photographs, would oversee operations. But Eleanor had another request. The foundation needs a local director, someone who understands this community's needs. When you're ready, not now, but after proper education and training, would you consider taking that role? Ayana agreed without hesitation. Eleanor passed away peacefully 3 weeks later. The entire village attended her memorial service, where they learned of her extensive provisions for the community's future, not charity that created dependency, but sustainable programs that fostered independence and dignity. At 16, Ayana received a scholarship to study nursing in the capital. At 22, she returned with her degree and additional training in public health. The small school Eleanor had started had grown into a proper academy serving 5 surrounding villages. The mobile clinic had become a permanent facility. Ayana took her place as the local director of the Langston Foundation, working alongside international partners. Under her leadership, the foundation expanded its focus to include legal advocacy against child marriage. They provided safe housing for girls escaping forced marriages and education programs that helped communities understand the harm these practices caused. When a powerful regional official attempted to marry a 13-year-old girl from a neighboring village, Ayana and the foundation's legal team successfully intervened, creating a precedent that helped strengthen enforcement of existing laws against child marriage. By her 25th birthday, Ayana had helped establish similar programs in 4 neighboring regions. The foundation's approach, combining education, healthcare, economic opportunity, and legal protection, became a model studied by international organizations. One afternoon, 10 years after Eleanor's passing, Ayana stood before a class of nursing students at the community health center that now bore both their names. On the wall hung 2 photographs side by side, Eleanor in her white doctor's coat and Ayana at her nursing school graduation. Real change doesn't come from saviors, she told the students, mostly young women who had grown up with opportunities she had nearly lost. It comes from partnership and empowerment. It comes when we recognize each other's humanity and dignity. After class, Ayana walked to the small memorial garden where Eleanor had been laid to rest. She placed fresh flowers beside the simple stone marker. "We're continuing the work," she whispered, "not as charity, but as justice." A young girl approached, one of her students. "Ms. Ayana, is it true you almost couldn't be a nurse because your family couldn't afford school?" Ayana nodded. "That's why we work to ensure no one's potential is wasted because of poverty." The girl's eyes shone with determination. "I want to help build the next clinic in the eastern villages." Ayana smiled. "Then we begin tomorrow." As they walked back toward the center, dozens of students were gathering for afternoon classes, their voices filling the air with purpose and possibility. The foundation Eleanor had planted had grown into a forest, and Ayana knew this was just the beginning.